The story follows Nao Hanroka, a talented confectioner who creates traditional Japanese cakes and sweets. She is renowned for her ability to make customized sweets that reflect the personality and mood of her customers. One day, her friend Mayu Sayama asks her to make sweets for her wedding, which is a once-in-a-lifetime celebration that requires the best possible gift. However, since Mayu's partner is the eldest child of a traditional school owner, she also seeks help from another favorite shop. The competition comes to a head during a tea event for both families, where Mayu will ultimately decide which shop to choose. Upon hearing the name of her upcoming rival, Nao's demeanor changed instantly. The shop in question was Kogutsuan, a renowned establishment with a long history in the Kanazawa region. Nao wasn't afraid of competition per se, but the mention of Kogutsuan stirred up painful memories from her past. The owner of Kogutsuan, Itsuki Takatsuki, had a son named Tsubaki who had played a dark role in Nao's life. The scene then takes us back 15 years to when Nao's mother, who was also a cake and sweet maker, started working at the Takatsuki family's shop. Nao and her mother, Yuriko Okura, had lived in the guest house of the Takatsuki family when her mother worked at their sweet shop. It was during this time that Nao first met Tsubaki, the only son of the Kogutsuan sweet shop's owner, whose family had a 400-year history of confectionery making. Despite being only 5 years old at the time, Tsubaki welcomed Nao with open arms and affectionately called her Sakura, unaware of her real name. Because of her weak constitution, Nao spent most of her time indoors, but Tsubaki would often visit her and offer comfort and encouragement. He even taught her how to make sweets, recognizing her natural talent in the craft. Tsubaki's father, Itsuki, adored his son and envisioned him as the future leader of the Takatsuki family business. Tsubaki promised Nao that she would one day become the top sweets maker when he inherited the shop. One night, young Sakura woke up to find her mother missing. Following a trail of scattered red flowers, she stumbled upon the lifeless body of Itsuki Takatsuki. Amidst the chaos and panic, Tsubaki was the only witness to the murder. But shockingly, he pointed the finger at Sakura's mother as the culprit. As a result, Yuriko was arrested and imprisoned, and Sakura was cast out of the Kogutsuan. This traumatic event left a lasting impact on Nao, who developed a deep fear of the color red. This was particularly challenging for her since the color red is essential for making traditional Japanese sweets. Nao's life was a struggle after being expelled from the Kogutsuan family. She was constantly harassed and labeled as the son of a murderer. Nao missed her mother terribly and longed for her guidance. One night, a mysterious man approached her and delivered a letter that her mother, Yuriko, had entrusted to him. The letter was meant to be given to Nao when she turned 20, and the man had a difficult time tracking her down as she had changed her name. However, the man concealed his true identity and pretended to be a fan of Nao's mother's sweets. Upon reading the letter, Nao was inspired to start afresh by cutting her hair and pursuing her passion for making sweets. She was determined to overcome any obstacle that came her way. When Mayu invited her to attend a tea event, Nao confidently showed up with her new name and appearance. Even Tsubaki failed to recognize her. After 15 long years, Nao finally reunited with Tsubaki. However, he was no longer the warm and affectionate person she had known in the past. Despite his cold demeanor, Nao was determined to make a good impression at the tea event hosted by Mayu and her family. She presented her sweets alongside Kogutsuan shop sweets for the guests to try. As the guests savored Nao's exquisitely crafted sweets, it became apparent that they preferred her creations over the ones from Kogutsuan shop. Tsubaki, who also tasted her sweets, found himself increasingly drawn to Nao's talent and passion for confectionery. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was something special about her that had touched his heart. As Nao was about to head home, Tsubaki suddenly appeared and took her hand. He recited a beautiful poem and asked for her hand in marriage. Stunned, Nao was shocked by the sudden proposal. However, she remembered her mother's letter that proved her innocence and saw this as a chance to clear her mother's name. Despite her mixed feelings towards Tsubaki, she accepted the proposal and agreed to marry him. Tsubaki invited Nao to his family's estate in Takatsuki, and after 3 days, she arrived. Upon arrival, she was greeted by Yusuke Jojima, Tsubaki's assistant. The estate was familiar to Nao since she used to live there. On a fateful day, Tsubaki was due to take part in a matchmaking ceremony with the daughter of a renowned inn owner in Japan, Mr. Haseya. However, Nao's plans to give Tsubaki a gift were derailed by unforeseen circumstances. Despite this, she quickly sought out Tsubaki and presented him with a souvenir of sweets designed to resemble a moonless night. Tsubaki was struck by the similarity between the sweets and the current state of Kogutsuan, which had lost its former uniqueness. As Tsubaki savored the thoughtful gift from Nao, he found himself increasingly drawn to her. He declared in front of his family, including his fiancée, that he would decline the arranged marriage and instead choose to wed Nao. Haseya's family was livid and ashamed by this announcement, but Tsubaki's mother, Kyoko Takatsuki, worked tirelessly to bring about a resolution to the turmoil. Kyoko appeared outwardly composed, but deep down, she was disappointed with her son's sudden proposal to another woman at the engagement ceremony. The argument that followed was overheard by Tsubaki's grandfather, Mr. Sojiro Takatsuki, who surprisingly did not object to Tsubaki's decision to choose his own partner. Even more remarkable, Tsubaki's grandfather went so far as to apologize to the Haseo family, and Tsubaki himself took responsibility for all the events of that day. What drove Tsubaki to reject the arranged marriage and propose to Nao was his desire to restore Kogutsuan's reputation to its former glory. Ever since the death of the shop's owner, Itsuki, the quality of the sweets had been declining. Tsubaki wanted to revive Kogutsuan's exceptional taste and ensure that it was once again appreciated by people from all over. He asked Nao to move in with him. Nao's arrival in Kogutsuan brought back fond memories of her mother's sweet making from her childhood. However, Kyoko remained suspicious of Nao and secretly monitored her every move. The next day, a customer placed an order and Kyoko instructed Nao to take care of it. But when Nao delivered the order, she was shocked to find that the sweets were not what the customer had requested. The sweets were bright red, and Nao suffered a panic attack because of her phobia of the color. Such mistakes could lead to customer dissatisfaction. Further investigation revealed that Kyoko was behind the mishap, purposely sabotaging Nao's efforts to earn the trust of the family and be accepted as a Takatsuki. However, Nao was not one to give up easily. She decided to leave the family, but only after Tsubaki himself told her to do so. Nao's defiance upset Kyoko, who believed that Nao, an outsider with an unclear background, did not deserve to be part of their family. Kyoko was determined to kick Nao out and even went as far as tossing her belongings into the pond. Nao was left in tears and had to retrieve her mother's items from the pond. Thankfully, Tsubaki arrived and helped her collect them. During a conversation with Mr. Sojiro, Nao discovered that Tsubaki was not biologically related to him. Despite never having taken a DNA test, Mr. Sojiro believed that Tsubaki was Kyoko's illegitimate child. That night, Tsubaki revealed to Nao that when he was younger, he spent time with a girl named Sakura who brought light into their otherwise dark home. There was something about holding Nao's hand that made Tsubaki feel like she could also bring change to their household. Despite initially hating Tsubaki, Nao began to develop feelings for him, causing an inner conflict between her mind and heart. She even asked Tsubaki what he would do if he saw Sakura again, and he responded that he would eliminate her forever. Little did Tsubaki know that Nao was actually Sakura, whom he had met as a child. Tsubaki revealed the events that occurred 15 years ago, when he saw Sakura's mother in a compromising position with his own father on the night he died. This revelation led Nao to wonder if her own mother had a secret relationship with Mr. Itsuki. As the truth remained unclear, Nao decided to keep her true identity hidden from Tsubaki. Kyoko was determined to uncover Nao's true identity and conducted a secret investigation. She was left in shock after discovering that Nao was the daughter of Yuriko, her husband's former lover. The following day, Kyoko wore a red patterned kimono to purposely trigger Nao's claustrophobia, which only intensified Nao's discomfort. Kyoko relentlessly questioned Nao about her family background and whereabouts 15 years ago, as if trying to corner her. It was clear that Kyoko already knew everything about Nao's past. As Nao was being interrogated by Kyoko, Tsubaki and Yusuke arrived to announce that Nao's mother, Yuko Miyabe, had come to visit her. Nao was taken aback, confused as to who this woman claiming to be her mother was. Despite this, she played along in order to protect her true identity and to discredit Kyoko's accusations. After the meeting, Yuko requested to speak with Nao alone and revealed that she was acting under the orders of a customer from her shop. Nao was surprised to learn that the mysterious man who had given her a letter from her mother was the one who had asked Yuko to act as her mother. As Nao was about to leave, she was attacked by an unknown assailant. Fortunately, Tsubaki arrived in time to rescue her but got hurt in the process. Nao felt uneasy about Tsubaki's injuries, and he claimed that the only person who would benefit from ruining their marriage was his own mother. One day, they attended a tea party, and there Nao met a mysterious man named Kaoru Takigawa. Takigawa complimented Nao's sweets and revealed that he had received a letter from Yuriko, Nao's mother. He promised to protect Nao as long as she continued making sweets. Little did anyone know, Kyoko had a secret accomplice tasked with keeping an eye on Nao and causing her harm. To everyone's surprise, the accomplice was none other than Yusuke, who had been coerced into his actions by his dire need for money. However, that wasn't the only reason for his involvement. He also held a personal grudge against Tsubaki. Kyoko's mistreatment of Nao was only getting worse with each passing day. She would verbally abuse and insult her without any hesitation. Nao had become so fearful that she would start to hyperventilate whenever she came face to face with Kyoko's menacing red lips. Yusuke extended an invitation to Nao to join him for a sweet treat at a shop he frequented. He explained that his job at Kogutsuan was a means to gain experience and knowledge, with the ultimate goal of continuing his family's shop. He also offered Nao a chance to sample his family's delectable cakes by inviting her to his room that very evening. As Nao considered the offer, she realized that Yusuke's room was none other than the very same room where she had once lived with her mother. Overcome with curiosity and nostalgia, Nao eagerly accepted the invitation, eager to revisit the memories of her past. Yusuke saw this as an opportunity to sway Nao's opinion of him, claiming that Tsubaki was only bringing misery into her life while he could offer her happiness and joy. Their conversation was abruptly interrupted when Tsubaki unexpectedly arrived, having been tipped off by Kyoko that Nao was with Yusuke in his room. Tsubaki demanded that Yusuke stay away from Nao, but Yusuke boldly declared his feelings for her, refusing to back down. Tsubaki was furious and came close to physically attacking Yusuke, but Nao intervened, preventing the situation from escalating. However, the incident caused a rift in Nao and Tsubaki's previously amicable relationship, playing right into Kyoko's scheme to sabotage their impending marriage. Meanwhile, Yusuke seemed resigned to his fate, as he was due to be fired from Kogutsuan in a matter of weeks. As it turned out, Yusuke's own family's confectionery business had gone bankrupt a year earlier after someone had sabotaged their cakes by deliberately dropping them. The family had suspected Kogutsuan after finding a handkerchief with their name on it, but they had no way to prove it. Yusuke had been collecting money to pay off his family's debts as his father had died and his mother was hospitalized. Unfortunately, Yusuke couldn't continue his father's legacy as he didn't know how to make the signature warabi mochi that had made the family business famous. Moved by Yusuke's plight, Nao began making warabi mochi cakes every day, tirelessly experimenting until they were a perfect match for Yusuke's father's recipe. Over time, Yusuke began to see Nao's kindness and sincerity, causing him to abandon his malicious intentions and to appreciate Nao's steadfastness in helping him. Yusuke finally uncovered the culprit behind his father's sabotage cake, Kyoko, who cheated to ensure her son's victory. In a bid to make amends for his mother's wrongdoing, Tsubaki cleared Yusuke's debts and covered his mother's medical expenses. As a gesture of gratitude, Yusuke vowed to repay Tsubaki, who had acted with sincerity. Meanwhile, Nao, who was getting ready for her wedding, started feeling different and exhausted. Suspecting that she might be pregnant, she took a test which confirmed her suspicion. Though thrilled with the news, Nao was anxious about telling Tsubaki since her late mother may not have approved of her daughter carrying the child of the man responsible for their past hardships. This left Nao in a difficult situation, torn between her happiness and her mother's memory. Ever since her mother's passing, Nao had to fend for herself in an orphanage and never thought she could have a family again. But now, she felt it was time to come clean with Tsubaki about her true identity. However, she was yet to have a chance to tell him in person as he was busy with events out of town. In her moments of solitude, Nao would visit Yusuke's room to reminisce about the past with her mother. One day, while looking through her mother's belongings, she noticed a toolbox hidden away in the closet with letters from Tsubaki's father to her mother. As Nao rummaged through her mother's belongings, she stumbled upon DNA test results that shocked her to the core. The results revealed that she was the biological child of Itsuki, which meant that she and Tsubaki were not siblings. Moreover, she discovered that Tsubaki was not actually a descendant of the Takatsuki family, which meant that he couldn't inherit Kogutsuan, the family's legacy. Coincidentally, Nao met Mr. Sojiro, who shared his fear that Kogutsuan would die with him. Mr. Sojiro had been searching for a girl named Sakura who had lived there 15 years ago. He suspected that Sakura was Itsuki's daughter and the rightful heir to Kogutsuan. Mr. Sojiro's suspicion was fueled by a memory of Tsubaki's mother making sweets, which Tsubaki claimed were made by Sakura. However, Mr. Sojiro was certain that only the original bloodline of the Takatsuki family could produce the taste of Kogutsuan. When he learned that his son had loved Sakura's mother, he became convinced that Sakura was indeed Itsuki's daughter and the rightful heir to Kogutsuan. Nao was feeling a mix of emotions as she struggled to keep her pregnancy a secret while also hiding her true identity from Tsubaki to spare his feelings. However, one fateful night, Tsubaki's ex-fiancée Shiori Hase unexpectedly arrived and overheard rumors about Nao's mother being a criminal. This revelation came as a shock to Tsubaki, but he did his best to maintain a positive outlook, assuring himself that the woman he loved came from a different family. The annual tea ceremony hosted by the Takatsuki family was a grand event, attended by prestigious guests including Takigawa and Shiori. However, the evening took a dramatic turn when Mr. Sojiro discovered Kyoko in his room, attempting to steal his will. Sojiro had long known of Kyoko's deceitful nature, having once caught her in a compromising position with another man, whom he suspected to be Tsubaki's father. Despite bringing Kyoko to Kogutsuan as a mistress, Sojiro now realized that she was a venomous snake, intent on destroying everything in her path. In an attempt to defend herself, Kyoko claimed that she had entered Kogutsuan with dreams of being loved by Itsuki, but he had only ever had eyes for Yuriko. Feeling robbed of her happiness, Kyoko still insisted that Tsubaki continue to run the shop. The argument between Kyoko and Sojiro escalated to the point of a physical struggle, causing Sojiro to fall and hit his head on the table. With blood pouring from his wound, Kyoko left him and snatched the will. At the same time, Nao had noticed that the previously locked room was now open and went to investigate. She ran into Kyoko outside the room and remembered that Kyoko had been in the camellia garden on the night of the incident, leading Nao to question whether Kyoko knew about Mr. Itsuki's relationship with her mother. Kyoko became emotional and attacked Nao, unable to forgive her husband's love for another woman. This caused Kyoko to lose her mind and influenced Tsubaki to testify that Sakura's mother was responsible for his father's death. However, Nao finally revealed her true identity as Sakura and told Tsubaki that she had come to uncover the truth about her mother's involvement in the case 15 years ago. Despite Tsubaki's shock at learning that Nao had lied to him, she was certain that her mother could not have killed Mr. Itsuki. The house was thrown into chaos as a candle in Mr. Sojiro's room sparked a devastating fire. Though everyone had managed to escape, Mr. Sojiro remained trapped inside. Tsubaki, determined to save his grandfather, refused to give up and braved the smoke-filled rooms to find him. Meanwhile, Nao stubbornly waited, convinced that Tsubaki would return to rescue her. But as the flames grew more intense, Tsubaki found himself struggling to breathe and collapsing from exhaustion. It seemed all was lost, until a mysterious figure suddenly appeared and saved him from the collapsing roof. As Nao waited anxiously, Yusuke arrived and urged her to leave before it was too late. But just as she was about to go with him, Nao was hit with sudden contractions, causing her to fall to the ground in pain. Luckily, Takigawa arrived just in time to help her and ensure that she would make it out alive. Days after the harrowing ordeal, Nao awoke in a hospital room with a burning question on her mind. She anxiously asked Yuko about Tsubaki's fate, but she could not give her any news. All Yuko could do was assure Nao that nobody had perished in the fire. But the news only added to Nao's grief as she mourned the loss of her unborn child. She saw it as a form of karma for all the lies she had told in the past. As if fate was taunting her, news eventually reached Nao that Tsubaki had heroically saved his grandfather and the precious family heirlooms. Though relieved that Tsubaki had survived the fire, Nao could not shake the feeling that he was angry with her and that he had chosen Kogutsuan over her. With nothing left for her in Kogutsuan, Nao resolved to move on and forget about her past with the Takatsuki family, including her love for Tsubaki. 3 months after the fire, Tsubaki had taken on temporary management of the sweet shop in place of his hospitalized grandfather, Mr. Sojiro. Despite his efforts, Tsubaki had been unable to locate Nao, and he knew that her accusations of him ignoring her were untrue. In fact, Tsubaki had been unconscious for 10 days after the fire, and it was Shiori who had saved him from the collapsing roof. But in doing so, Shiori had suffered severe burns to her face, and Tsubaki felt guilty and indebted to her. He had changed from his former cold demeanor and was now kind to Shiori, who had always harbored feelings for him. She begged Tsubaki to allow her to work at Kogutsuan, and he eventually relented. Meanwhile, Kyoko had been bitterly disappointed to learn that the letter she had thought was a real will was a fake. 3 years later, Takigawa opened a new shop called Hanagasumi, where Nao worked as a confectioner. She aimed to create a new legacy that would replace the old Kogutsuan. However, Tsubaki was worried when he saw his regular customers gradually shifting their subscriptions to Hanagasumi. Feeling challenged, he tried to innovate the sweet menu to win the annual garden party. On the day of the sweets competition, the chosen shop is put to the test by the judges. However, there's a secret brewing behind the scenes. Kyoko, one of the contestants, had paid off one of the male judges, Shinosuke, the day before. Confident in her actions, Kyoko believes that her shop, Kogutsuan, will come out on top. Meanwhile, Nao is wandering around and bumps into Tsubaki. To her surprise, Tsubaki doesn't recognize her due to his poor eyesight. As Nao tries to hide, Shiori suddenly appears, causing Nao to take cover immediately. As expected, Kogutsuan emerged victorious in the competition, despite the judges being wowed by Nao's impressive sweets. However, Takigawa had caught wind of Kyoko's cheating scheme and asked Yuko to gather evidence of Kyoko's meeting with Judge Shinosuke. Meanwhile, Nao discovers that Tsubaki's poor eyesight is due to a tragic incident that happened 3 years ago. A piece of debris from a fire had damaged Tsubaki's cornea, and he requires immediate surgery to prevent total blindness. Even after the operation, it could take several months or even years for Tsubaki to return to normal activities. Tsubaki was devastated when he discovered that his mother had rigged the competition results. Seeking answers, he visited Hanagasumi's shop only to find that Nao was the one managing it. Confused by Nao's sudden disappearance and change in attitude, Tsubaki couldn't comprehend her actions. To add to his confusion, Takigawa claimed ownership of the shop and stood by Nao's side. Heartbroken, Tsubaki decided to leave. Meanwhile, Shiori feared losing Tsubaki to Nao and resorted to spreading a lie that she was pregnant with Tsubaki's child. She even begged him to sleep with her, hoping to conceive. However, Tsubaki's love for Nao was too strong, and he rejected Shiori's advances. Kyoko seized the opportunity to provoke Nao's emotions when they bumped into each other at the hospital. She claimed that Shiori was pregnant with Tsubaki's child, causing Nao to lose her balance after being pushed by Kyoko. but Nao wasn't one to give up easily. She had solid evidence that she was Itsuki's biological daughter and the rightful heir to Kogutsuan. Unfortunately, Kyoko snatched the DNA test results and tore them up. However, Mr. Sojiro overheard Nao's statements and asked if she was indeed Sakura, Itsuki's daughter. Nao confirmed this and provided the DNA test results as proof, but Kyoko interfered once again. Despite the chaos, Mr. Sojiro asked Kyoko and Tsubaki to leave, wanting to speak to Nao alone. Mr. Sojiro was delighted when he tasted the delicious food that Nao had made. He immediately realized that Nao was the granddaughter he had been searching for, Sakura. He then shared with Nao the story of Itsuki, who had been deeply in love with Yuriko, his junior high school classmate. However, their relationship was cut short by Mr. Sojiro, who followed the hereditary tradition of selecting a future spouse for Itsuki. Itsuki and Yuriko remained in love until their deaths, despite not being able to be together. Mr. Sojiro regretted his decision and wondered if things could have been different had he approved of their relationship from the beginning. Overjoyed to have found Itsuki's true descendant in Nao, Mr. Sojiro decided to create a competition to determine who would be the successor of Kogutsuan. On New Year's Eve, a competition was held to determine the successor of Kogutsuan. The contestants were to make sweets for Mr. Sojiro, and whoever made the most thrilling sweet would be chosen. This was a significant departure from tradition, which had been upheld for over 400 years. Mr. Sojiro made this decision because he could not ignore Tsubaki, who had been his loyal companion since childhood and dedicated his life to Kogutsuan. Even though Tsubaki was not his biological grandson, Mr. Sojiro's ultimate goal was to ensure the success of Kogutsuan. The events of that night had a profound impact on Shiori. She was consumed with guilt and was unable to focus on work. She couldn't continue to lie about her pregnancy and sought Yusuke's help in reuniting with Nao. Shiori confessed to Nao that she had faked her pregnancy to win Tsubaki's affections. On the day to determine the successor of Kogutsuan, Tsubaki coincidentally met Yuko. Unaware of Nao's condition, Tsubaki was puzzled by her sudden disappearance. Nao blamed herself for the miscarriage and didn't want to burden Tsubaki with her troubles. Each contestant presented their signature sweets to Mr. Sojiro for tasting, and ultimately Nao was chosen as the successor of Kogutsuan. Kyoko, disappointed that her son had failed, scolded him in front of everyone. Mr. Sojiro intervened, but his health deteriorated and he fell to the ground. Mr. Sojiro refused to be taken to the hospital and requested to speak with Tsubaki alone. He explained that he couldn't choose Tsubaki's sweets because they were meant only for him and not for everyone to enjoy. He wanted Tsubaki to be able to make sweets freely without any restrictions. Mr. Sojiro's last message was for Tsubaki to carry on the tradition of Kogutsuan. Although not biologically related, Tsubaki loved his grandfather deeply. Nao was the sole member of the Takatsuki family responsible for continuing the Kogutsuan business. Tsubaki, before leaving, had warned her to protect it well as Kyoko's presence would ensure her life was never peaceful. Kyoko, still holding a grudge, was determined to destroy the family's legacy. She wanted to burn the ancestral equipment, believing it was useless without Tsubaki. Suddenly, Takigawa intervened by pointing a knife at Kyoko, leaving Nao in shock. Takigawa then revealed a 15-year-old story that shed light on the situation. 15 years ago, Kyoko persuaded Takigawa's father, Hideyuki, to kill the owner of Kogutsuan. Unbeknownst to Tsubaki, Hideyuki was his real father and had been having an affair with Kyoko. Despite having different mothers, Tsubaki and Takigawa were actually siblings. In an attempt to destroy the shop, Kyoko threw a lighter at a toolbox drenched in gasoline, causing a raging fire. Nao, determined to fulfill her promise to protect Kogutsuan, tried to extinguish the flames, but her hand was injured in the process. Just as all hope seemed lost, Tsubaki appeared, throwing his suit to put out the fire. Kyoko attempted to justify her actions by claiming that she was confused after Itsuki asked for a divorce. However, her meeting with Hideyuki planted an evil idea in her mind. She decided to have a romantic relationship with him, become pregnant, and claim that the child in her womb was Itsuki's. Even though Itsuki knew the truth, he kept quiet to prevent Kogutsuan's reputation from being destroyed. However, Kyoko's jealousy towards Itsuki and Yuriko's relationship continued to escalate. On the night of Itsuki's murder, Tsubaki was easily manipulated by his mother, who pointed to Yuriko as the culprit. But Kyoko was not responsible for the murder, she had only switched the murder weapon at the scene. It was ultimately revealed that Takigawa was the true culprit behind Itsuki's death. Takigawa harbored deep-seated resentment towards Kyoko for ruining his family and causing his mother to attempt suicide. Seeking revenge, Takigawa went to look for Kyoko but instead stumbled upon Itsuki. In a panicked state, Takigawa pulled out his knife and demanded to know Kyoko's whereabouts. Itsuki attempted to intervene but ended up being stabbed in the process. Frightened, Takigawa fled the scene, leaving Kyoko in shock when she saw her husband covered in blood. Her initial instinct was to call an ambulance, but upon hearing Itsuki mention Yuriko's name, Kyoko decided to blame her instead. Kyoko swapped the murder weapon with Yuriko's knife, believing that Hideyuki was the culprit. However, she never discovered that the true murderer was Takigawa until 15 years later. After receiving a letter left by Yuriko, Takigawa finally realized that Sakura was the true heir to Kogutsuan. Seeking revenge, he plotted to ruin Nao's life and orchestrated her entry into the Takatsuki family. Takigawa's hatred for Kyoko was so intense that he even contemplated ending her life. However, Nao, who also despised Kyoko, prevented him from doing so. Tsubaki tried to intervene but was unsuccessful, and Nao unexpectedly protected Kyoko from Takigawa's knife. Although Nao couldn't forgive Takigawa, she was grateful for the knowledge he provided her about Kogutsuan and her family. Kyoko's dream of capturing Kogutsuan was shattered, and she walked down the street with a blank stare. But when she saved a child from an accident, she ended up in the hospital. Despite the doctor's efforts, Kyoko couldn't be saved. However, her decision to register for organ donation provided Tsubaki with a chance to fulfill his dream of becoming a confectioner. Kyoko's willingness to donate her eyes to Tsubaki showed how much she was willing to do for her son's aspirations. Despite Kyoko's mistakes, Tsubaki remembered the happy moments they shared and understood that his mother's actions were driven by her love for him. With Tsubaki's agreement to undergo the surgery, Nao took on the responsibility of running Kogutsuan, a place that held memories and flavors that customers sought. Nao overcame her fear of the color red while Takigawa was imprisoned for his actions. He entrusted Nao's care to Yuko, while Nao continued to provide her customers with flavors that brought them happiness. After a successful surgery and a lengthy recovery, Tsubaki was finally discharged from the hospital. Nao felt relieved to hear the good news and couldn't shake off her feelings for Tsubaki despite their tumultuous relationship. She hoped that he would return to Kogutsuan, as she also needed him. Nao had always harbored a deep affection for Tsubaki, and he felt the same way towards her. They were bound to each other by an unbreakable thread of love, even though they knew that pain and hurt might be in their future. However, they were destined to love each other as if a curse had been placed upon them. Moral lesson that we can learn from the story is, love and family can drive people to make mistakes, but forgiveness and redemption are possible. Revenge only leads to more pain, and it's important to take responsibility for one's actions.